This is Zelda's most depressing storyline. For a series made by Nintendo, The Legend of Zelda goes to some pretty dark places. We've got the entire story of the Age of Calamity, retelling the ancient war that took place all those years ago, responsible for the loss of thousands of lives. Then there's the entire Zelda timeline where a branch is based off of if Link either lives or dies. Then of course there's the majority of Majora's Mask, as Link will need to race against the clock to prevent the moon from crashing and destroying everything. Of course, a big factor to push Link into danger is the need to protect those he cares about. Regardless of the threat, Link is going to push forward with the Master Sword in hand and handle it. The urge to protect what he cares about is a core part of the Zelda experience, as many entries in the Zelda series send Link all over the realms. But there's always been one questline in these games that have stuck with me throughout the years, one that honestly chokes me up every time I think about it. So for the most part, Link doesn't really have much of a family in these games. He does have a handful of relatives like his father, which appears in the background in Breath of the Wild. Then there's also his direct descendant in Twilight Princess, being Link's teacher for a handful of his strongest abilities, but for the most part, a lot of these games are focused solely on Link and the new friends he makes on his quest. A lot of Zelda adventures are about leaving home to go off and face this brave new world alone. And a big part of leaving home is leaving those we care about behind. And I've never really felt that feeling of leaving home like I do then the beginning of The Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker. It's a plotline that crushes my heart every time I think about it for too long, as I think it's one of the most depressing Zelda quest lines in the entire series. But before I get into it, let me know in the comment section below, do you have a favorite Zelda game? I'm definitely torn between my favorite being Wind Waker and Tears of the Kingdom, both for entirely different reasons, but both capture that feeling of grand adventure that I'm looking for. And while you're down there, please be sure to hit that like button. Makes it so much easier for Link to gather all of the pieces of the Triforce with every like out there. So The Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker has been dealt a pretty horrible hand throughout its entire life. It was the main GameCube Zelda game, selling over 6 million copies. The GameCube itself wasn't really selling like that, being the third place console at the time. And when it finally got another chance at release with Wind Waker HD, the game released on the Wii U, one of Nintendo's biggest missteps in the company's history. So while a lot of people might know about Wind Waker, there's probably a good chunk of Zelda fans who have never had the opportunity to play it. Hopefully they stop playing around and port these games over to the Switch or the Switch 2. I saw that Xenoblade Chronicles X was getting a port, so the only thing we can do right now is hope and pray. But I digress. In this Zelda game, you live on an island with your sister and your grandmother. It's a peaceful island with a wide variety of residents from every age and size. Link, being a small child in this game, is ready to celebrate his birthday. Errol, Link's younger sister in this game, is also so excited to celebrate that she ends up giving him her favorite telescope as a gift, and preparations for the party will be happening later on in that day. Only instead of a party, we'll be hosting a funeral service for our sister who has been snatched by a giant bird. Link quickly jumps into action but finds that he cannot fly and is prevented from going after them. Fortunately, she's not actually dead, but is the inciting incident that pushes Link to go off into the sea. Link then teams up with some pirates that were after this giant bird, as it's been going around the ocean stealing girls with pointed long ears, just like Link's sister. And now we leave our comfortable island to sail the vast seas and locate our sister. It's common for Zelda games to push us out of our homes, but I think back to the scene where Link is departing. Before leaving, Link needs to return home to get his family shield, as it will be a helpful asset in defending himself on his journey. But when you return home, you find that the shield is gone, only for the player to get hit with the most guilt-filled cutscene I have ever seen. Grandma is hiding in the corner, covering the shield with her body, knowing that Link will need it for his upcoming adventure. Even when Link grabs the shield, there's a very uncomfortable look on his face, knowing that his grandma only gave him this under these extreme circumstances. Then when the game cuts to Grandma crying in the room, what kind of monster could take such a sweet young child? She's quivering from the news, upset knowing that she may never see her grandkids again. And then we get a shot of him waving goodbye to the island residents. Everyone has showed up to wish Link luck on his quest, but everyone else is waiting here on the beach. I love this detail here, as Link waves to his local neighbors with just one of his hands, only for Link to see off in the distance that his grandma is cheering for him alone at their house. Link, so filled with emotions, runs out to the edge of the ship, giving his grandmother one final goodbye before fading off into the horizon, raising both of his hands in the air, giving her one passionate farewell. It's just this shot right here showing her being alone in the house all by herself. Now that Link and his sister is gone, there is no one to keep Grandma company. The thought is a little heartbreaking at first, but you're so caught up in your own quest to even worry about it, so you keep pushing forward. About 5 to 10 hours later in the game, after breaking into a highly secure facility, finding a talking boat, making friends with a bird person, slapboxing a scorpion, more sailing, and defeating a giant flower, you need to gather these 3 orbs in order to continue the story. First one was located here at Dragon Roost Island, and the second one being here at the Forest Dungeon. And you would think the third one would just be in another dungeon location. But the game decides to mix you up a little bit with its pacing, since instead of going the traditional dungeon route, we'll be spending a lot of this time exploring the overworld. You'll need to head over to Great Fish Isle in order to find this whale. as he is the keeper of the third and final pearl. But when you arrive, the island is essentially in shambles with no whale to be found, and the rest of the ocean will be covered in a thunderstorm that is endless. No matter where you run off on the charts, the sky will be blackened and the rain will continue to fall. It's incredibly depressing no matter where you run. After heading back to Windfall Island and securing some bombs, we find out that the location of the whale is back at our hometown of Outset Island, making this the first time we return home since leaving our grandmother behind. Coming back to Outset Island during this time just amplifies the sadness around the situation. Basically, everyone is inside of their homes and thunder is just rattling the land in the night. When we pull up, even the King of the Red Lions is suggesting that we go visit our family again. And while we don't need to do this to progress the story, you can just take the bombs to the back of the island here and blast through the wall to be done with it. It is something worth investigating, if not only for the reason to see our lovely grandma again. You gotta remember, she gave us that shield with nothing but hope and a dream. So she's gotta be ecstatic to see that her grandson is alive, right? Well, the moment you walk back into your childhood home, you are greeted with the saddest tune. You walk in to find your grandmother resting in her chair with a defeated look on her face, behind her being a picture of her two grandbabies. Speaking with her, she's begging for her grandchildren to not leave her behind. Don't leave your poor old grandma. Even with you physically there, she's too depressed to realize what's happening in front of her. If you go outside and talk to Sue Bell, another local resident of the island, she'll say that your grandmother has been having a terrible time of it ever since you left. She rarely leaves the house, and as far as I can tell, she spends her day sleeping. She hardly eats. So ever since our departure, we learned that grandma has been taking it very, very hard. Probably worried sick that her children, grandkids are out there in this cold, cold world. To be so senile to the point where she doesn't even recognize Link when he comes back to visit her. It really crushes my heart to leave her like this. If you speak to Surgeon, he reveals that a fairy in a bottle should do the trick and bring her back to her former self. But the fairies on the island have been long departed. So you either have to get a fairy from an earlier point in the game, or you go to the fairy fountain at the top of the island, and now that you can blow up this entrance here because you have bombs. Regardless, bring the fairy back to grandma and the magic will happen. She will slowly reawaken from the darkness surrounding her, instantly surprised to find that Link has returned back to her, the previously sick body now moving with so much passion and vindication, reaching out to her grandson she thought she would never see again. Did you do this? Did you heal me? Oh, you're such a sweet child. She even has a moment of realization, realizing that her children are being so strong regardless of the situation and that she needs to do the same. I'm your grandmother. I'm the one that should be taking care of you. She even calls herself a terrible grandmother, which is like, come on. I just know damn well if she was just a little bit younger, she would be out there hunting down Arrow with us. But her older vessel isn't allowing for that level of freedom anymore. So all she can do is give her support from a distance. Just kidding, grandma gives us one of the best items in the entire game for just dropping by. If you have an empty bottle, she will give you the elixir soup, which will refill all of your HP and all of your magical energy. And it will also double the amount of damage you dish out for a limited time. And there are 2 servings of soup per empty bottle. And you can have up to 4 empty bottles in this game, making it so you can max out at 8 servings of soup at a time. Like, imagine being Ganondorf in this situation and seeing Link just chow down when he's in danger. She says, you and your sister love this soup, don't you? If you run out, I can make it for you anytime you like. Grandma's gonna try and be strong, so you try and be strong too. Stop, I'm crying in the club. So broken by the departure of her grandkids, now standing strong in the living room ready to give her support. I love this lady so much. After Link departs again on his journey, if you decide to heal up your grandma like any player with a heart should, you'll eventually get a letter in the mail from her giving Link all of her life savings in rupees. And that's the last time we hear about grandma until the end of the game. Even after completing his quest and saving his sister, Link sets out to the world to discover some new lands and leaves his grandmother behind once again. I mean, it's a nice thought to know that grandma gets reunited with our sister, but to know that the ending of the game is just us going out into the sea again, leaving all of our family behind after that grand adventure to find them, like, we couldn't get a bit more time with the family. Like, what happened to our birthday party? I mean, I get it. Him leaving to the ocean eventually leads to the events that would become Phantom Hourglass, but Link's grandma is never mentioned again. When I look at this storyline, I think about all the different grandmothers in my life, the ones with the strong hearts who cared about their families and always put them first. It's a reminder that even though they are grandmas, they were also people first, with their own wants, concerns, and needs, and to always try to keep them close because life can happen so fast. It can be an instant where we lose someone we care about. So it's so important to value those moments with the ones we love. There is also a theory surrounding Link's grandma in this game that I wanted to mention, as it might give us a little sneak peek on her personal life long before the events of the game. So Lenzo is a photographer who lives on Windfall Island. He talks about how in his younger days he was tireless and would spend a lot of his time snapping photos while exploring the Great Sea. If Link goes to his photo of Outset Island, Lenzo will begin to reminisce, talking about how he had a relationship with a woman who lives on this island, saying that she would be an elderly woman by the time of Link's adventure. And the only elderly woman on the island is Link's grandma. While it is possible for the woman in Lenzo's life to have up and left the island at any point, it is interesting to bring up an elderly woman who lives on this island, even potentially leading to Lenzo actually being Link's grandfather. While there's not a lot of evidence pointing to this outside of this text box, It does give a potential look at the old life Grandma used to live. Like I said, our grandparents were all people once too, with their own grand lives and adventures. We should all be asking our older relatives to tell their tales of their past. You might be surprised what kind of juicy tea you end up finding out. Link's grandma ends up giving form to the hero of Winds, so she can basically do whatever she wants. What starts off as one of Zelda's most depressing quest lines evolves into a story of perseverance during the dark times, and to never give up even when things seem hopeless, making it one of my favorites in the Zelda mythos. There's so many smaller quest lines like this throughout the entire Zelda series that makes them feel so much more relatable. Are there any out there that stuck out to you? Maybe I'll make a video taking a gander, since the Zelda series is full of so much lore. But thank you all so much for watching. Please be sure to comment, like, subscribe, and stay awesome.